excited to have Jessica Salle, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist, with us today. She owns Salle Family Therapy, and you can find her on Facebook and Instagram. But she is going to talk to us today about how you can use certain tools to help you when you have anxiety around eating. If you feel like you've been eating too much, or you're afraid to eat any more food, or you're afraid that if you eat more, you're going to gain weight, how do you overcome all of those challenges? And so, Jessica, I'm so happy to have you on today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
You're welcome. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your background and how you became involved in, one, as a therapist, but two, helping individuals with, eating related anxieties.
Well, I think like a lot of people, I got into therapy because I needed help at one point in my life and I found therapy very useful. And so when I was deciding on my career, I thought, I think I'd like to do this. I'm not sure I fully understood it when I got into it,
Right.
right? But I love helping people, specifically helping to rewrite unhelpful thoughts and challenge ways of thinking that are not beneficial to our lives. So I specifically use cognitive behavior therapy for that. And so in terms of eating, specifically eating anxiety or disordered eating habits, the way that I've seen that is that it is linked in with anxiety, depression, so many other things that not many people are coming to me specifically for eating, but it comes up in so many conversations for so many
Right.
people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I see that all the time in my practice is, working with, specifically females, but it could be anybody. They have issues with food, but it always manifests itself with anxiety. And, the anxiety could stem from anywhere. So I think this is such an important topic to touch on. So what are some reasons that you see that lead to anxiety around eating? And I know that we touched on this a little bit, but is there anything in particular that someone might have anxiety about that would then translate to eating, or is that not necessarily linked?
Yeah, so I think they are linked. And I think there are several things that we can see that tend to lead toward struggles with eating and the way we think about it. Number one, your family history. You're going to want to look at that and seeing how was food talked about in my home. Maybe specifically those listening to your podcast, you may have a lot of female athletes, things like that. High achieving women tend to tie their self-worth to control, perfectionism, and I understand. So that tends to overlap into eating because it's one of the only things we do every single day, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's not just family history. It's not just that I maybe have a bad body image. Now, what we see in culture in regards to body image and dieting and all of that absolutely has an effect. But I think people have probably overestimated that and underestimated how much just our own internal need for control is driving our eating anxiety.
For sure. Yes. And I see that a lot. I saw it in myself, and I see it in people that I work with, that, you want to be able to control everything. And so many people say, well, I don't feel comfortable going out to eat, or I don't feel comfortable having somebody else prepare my food because I want to be able to control what is in that food. And I can absolutely relate to that. Like, I had have the story of back when I was struggling with my eating disorder. I went to get a salad, and I was watching the person prepare my salad. It was like, one of those gas stations where they prepare food. And so I could
Right.
see them, and they just like dumped on salad dressing, and I could literally feel like my blood boiling. I was
Yeah.
so mad at how much salad dressing that they put on that salad. And it was like, I wanted to control how much salad dressing was on that. So I
Yes.
can absolutely see that. Can you explain the connection between stress and eating behaviors? Because I also feel like so many of us are under so much stress. Maybe that's self-induced, or it could just be, work environment or home environment or whatever. But how is that linked to eating behaviors?
Yeah, so it's very biological in a sense, in a way that is almost hard for us to comprehend. But when our body is stressed, we go into fight or flight mode. And that means chemicals are produced, right? We have adrenaline coming in, we have cortisol. these stress hormones start to creep in, and that can look a couple of ways. With short-term stress, it might suppress your appetite. Suddenly, I don't feel like I need to eat, right? But chronic stress long term, that means you're going to see an increase in cortisol, which is going to send the message to your body that I'm in danger, something bad's going to happen. So I need to stockpile on high carbs, high sugars, those kinds of things. It's not just that your brain is broken. Your body has instincts that are there for a reason, that are
Right.
meant to help you. But we need to remind our body sometimes, I'm actually just in a traffic jam. I'm not about to have to fight for my life, right? And
Right,
that
right.
telling that difference is the hard part.
Yes, yeah. So that makes perfect sense then how that could lead to food cravings. Usually
Mm-hmm.
people are craving something sweet or, a comfort food or something like that. So it sounds like what you're saying is because of that high cortisol, then that's sending that message to your brain, like I need food and I need quick digesting food, something that's going to give me energy really fast. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a really physical component to it. And then there's also just our own experiences, right? In the past, I have found this food to just be really yummy. And when I'm sad, I like to eat this. We
Mm-hmm.
build on those habits and they stick. So it's partly
Right.
biological, it's partly mental and emotional. Really, all of it's working together to create our experience.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to ask you this next question from both ends of the spectrum. So, there's people that when they are stressed out or they have anxiety, they don't want to eat. But then, of course, there's people on the other side of the spectrum that when they do eat, or I'm sorry, when they have anxiety or they're stressed out, they do want to eat. So, what are some practical tools or strategies that you recommend for those that don't want to eat when they are stressed out or they're really anxious about something? Like, what can they do?
So I think the important thing to remember is that your body under stress is lying to you a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be kind and understanding that, okay, I'm going through something, just like you would talk to a friend, be willing to be curious about yourself rather than passing immediate judgment and anger about your situation. So on really either end of the spectrum, biggest message I would say is get curious. I noticed that I'm not hungry, but I haven't eaten in this many hours. That's a little strange. I must be going through something. Maybe I'm stressed. Take the few seconds to pause and really think through, when did this start? Is there some sort of stress going on in my life? Take the time to get out of fight or flight mode, and you'll find that your hunger will work itself out. But we have to have habits of doing the right thing regardless of these little feelings that come and go.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay. And how do you feel like the same would apply to somebody that is going to eat when they are stressed out or anxious?
Yeah, I think it's just slow down is the message, really.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, don't jump to the conclusion that, oh, I'm not hungry, I don't need to eat, or I'm so hungry, I've got to eat right now. Don't just act fast in making your decisions about that. I would say slow down, move from, I've heard it said, moving from fight or flight to rest and digest. I
Yeah.
think just getting into a place of calm first, and then we'll make a decision about whether we should keep eating. If we slow down, then we're able to think through, why am I doing this? When have I done this in the past? And how did I feel afterwards? Two, giving yourself the time to think, am I doing this for my benefit, or am I doing this because I'm just following an instinct?
Right. So, and what are some actual tools that people can use when they are feeling anxious?
Mhm.
What do they do to actually calm down?
Yeah. Well, breathing is one of those things that when I bring it up in sessions, people always go, oh, you want me to breathe deeply again? It's one of those things that's easy to write off and say, what's that going to do? It really does something physical in your body. So,
Mm-hmm.
taking those few seconds to do some sort of breathing exercise. A really easy one is box breathing. It's easier for me to remember because it's just in for 4, hold your breath for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. And you're kind of going in this motion of in, out, hold. And kind of a rhythmic sort of breathing, is letting your body know I'm in control, I'm okay. It's bringing those stress levels down. The other thing with breathing is if you don't want to do a specific exercise or you feel like I'm in public, I don't want to be doing something that's obviously a breathing exercise, just check your rate of inhale and exhale. Make sure that you're exhaling longer than you're inhaling. So
Okay.
if this is just a regular pattern, maybe you want to do a little bit of journaling
Okay.
about your eating. I think I've seen people get obsessive with that, obviously. So you have to know yourself and know if that's helping you feel less anxious or not. So, just some little practical things are eat without distractions. So put your phone away while you're eating so that you can be more mindful of what you're consuming. Taking that time to pause and ask yourself, am I hungry? Am I full? What's going on with me? But I would say the deep breathing, those mindfulness techniques are going to be your best friend.
Okay. Is there any other mindfulness practices that can help women develop a healthier relationship with food?
I think that I know I mentioned journaling. I think whether you journal it or you don't, taking some time to understand your beliefs about food and where they come from is very
Mm-hmm.
important. So asking yourself questions like, this is a food rule I have in my mind. Where did that rule come from? What happens if
Right.
I break the rule? Anything bad actually going to happen? Asking, is this thought I'm having 100% true 100% of the time? Because we tend to go into all or nothing thinking. This is why
Yes.
diets go bad, right? Because, well, I ate one cookie, so now it's over. I'm done, and now I'm gonna
Right.
keep going. I'm gonna binge. And so I think that taking a look at your what we call cognitive patterns, your thought life, taking an honest look at that, figuring out where do my ideas about this come from, that and can I challenge those to come up with a more balanced perspective is the
Yeah.
most important thing.
So give me like an idea of a time frame that someone, and I'm sure it varies from person to person, but if somebody is struggling with this, everybody wants instant gratification. They want the problem to be
Mm-hmm.
solved right away. So how long do you feel like if someone were using these tools on a daily basis, how long would it take them to work past this anxiety around eating?
Well, I would say you can feel better almost instantly when you're willing to be kinder to yourself and more curious about
Yes,
yourself.
for
So
sure.
you can feel almost immediate relief, but I will say self compassion isn't a switch that you turn on and off. It's a process of relearning ways to think about yourself. And self compassion is a really important part of getting through anxiety around eating or disordered eating. So don't expect to unlearn in a day things that you have learned over years of living in your culture, in your family, in the society that we live in as a whole. Don't expect to change everything about the way you feel about eating overnight. But you can instantly breathe a sigh of relief when you realize that everything might not be ruined just because I messed up this one day.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So, give me an idea of some other self compassion tools that women can utilize to combat anxiety around eating.
Yeah. I would say work specifically on picking a thought and reframing it because reframing thoughts is a practice. And one of the things that I feel is very confusing when I started trying all of this is how am I supposed to just go from feeling like I hate my body, I hate the way I am,
Hmm.
how do I go from that to I love my body, I'm amazing, I think
Yes.
sometimes we have this idea that affirmations are these extremely unrealistic ways of thinking about yourself.
Right.
So let's start small. It doesn't have to go from I hate myself, I look disgusting today to I am the most beautiful person. It doesn't have to be that, but it can just be, I'm having some interesting negative thoughts about myself. I don't actually have to believe everything I think.
Hmm.
Let me just take a look at it, or maybe I can say, I don't really care for what I see when I look in the mirror right now, but today I'm really proud of the fact that I chose to fuel my body. I ate food that fuels me, and I'm proud of that. Or I love that my arms are strong enough to carry my children. Things that
Yes.
we can identify that help us to move in the right direction. I think we want to fix it, right? We want
Right.
one thing, one formula, one book. If I just read this one thing, if I try this, listen to this one podcast, it's going to fix me.
Right.
I hope everyone will walk away seeing that the best thing you can do is take a pause in this moment and say, what can I do to be kinder to myself, to take a deep breath and realize I have time. I can work on this over time.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It absolutely takes time to undo what you've been doing for the past however many years.
Yeah.
So I get this question a lot of how can people address family members when the family member is, saying unkind things to them. Like, let's say, somebody is working through all of this on their own, and then they go to a holiday dinner and their grandmother's like, "Oh, well, you're looking kind of chubby there. Are you sure you want to eat that?" Or, I don't, whatever, it can
Yeah.
run the gamut of what somebody might say. How can somebody address that? And what are some tools to work around that?
Yeah. So, very important to remember that boundaries are for ourselves, not things that we can impose on other people, right?
Right.
So, start off with knowing that there are people who are not going to change, and we can work to be at peace with that. But I would try to identify 2 or 3 people that you believe they are in a headspace to be able to accept a new idea about this, right? And they love me and they want to help. If you find 2 or 3 people like that, you can go to them and say, "Hey, I want you to know that this is something I'm working on. And when you make comments about my body or the food on my plate, it actually makes it a little worse for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, could we not talk about that right now while I'm working through this?" There are
Right.
going to be people in your life who can receive that. And there will be people who are like, "I don't even know what you're talking about."
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
And they do not want to help. And so we can release that, but choose to focus on the people who are willing to make adjustments in the way that they're talking. Be firm but kind. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to say, this is not really something that I'm wanting to talk about right now. Or to say, hey, could you just sit with me while I eat my lunch? I don't need to talk about it, but it would be great if somebody would just sit with me while I eat.
Yeah.
I think,
So
yeah, just tell them what you need, basically.
yeah. Okay. And so the people that are unwilling to receive that constructive criticism, we'll
Mhm.
call it that, what do you do with that? How do you just kind of like cut them out of your life? Do you not go to events where they're going to be there? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say you have to do some real soul searching to see, are you in a place to be able to hear that, right? Because Uncle so and so is always going to make a comment about, oh, marriage has really put the weight on you, huh? Or
Right.
you're going to hear these things and that's how he is, right? If you are in a place where you need to say, I'm not doing it, give yourself grace for that. Give yourself
Mm-hmm.
compassion for that. Today, I don't have it in me. And, for me, it might change from day to day, right?
Yeah.
I don't have it in me to explain to another person why I'm eating differently than I used to. I don't have it in me. That's okay. Show up for yourself that day and choose to not be around it, and it'll be all right.
Yeah.
But if you are thinking, you know what, the consequences of not showing up are so much greater than the consequence of having to hear this, so I'm just going to go and I'm going to put up with it, I would say have a script. Prepare a script ahead of time of what you're going to say in those moments. When someone makes an inappropriate comment, you can just prepare a short 6-word sentence, something like, oh, well, I don't really feel like that's appropriate to comment on, and walk away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or, it really doesn't bother me, and walk away.
Yeah.
I think having that script prepared ahead of time helps because number one, you're acknowledging that there are going to be different opinions there in the room. But number two, you're giving yourself the time and space to think about what you want to say that really just reflects how you feel, not how they should think.
Right. Yeah. I think that's so important to have something prepared
Mm-hmm.
ahead of time because when you're in the moment, I feel like you just kind of freeze up and you're like a deer in headlights. Like, what am I supposed to do right now?
Yeah.
So to have something prepared ahead of time, I think can make it so much easier for you to actually say what you want to say, and not necessarily say it in a mean way, but just kind of
Mhm.
set those boundaries. This is something that has always helped me is if I have a problem with somebody, rather than confronting them face to face, I mean, I might do that, but it's to actually write it out, write them a letter.
Yes.
So then I can actually get out what I want to say. I don't have to have an immediate response for when they come back at me with, I don't know what you're talking about, or whatever their response might be. I can just get out my feelings, and then we can address it after that. Is that something that you would recommend doing for other people?
Absolutely. I think as just a general tool with anxiety, if you're struggling with feeling anxious in social situations, with food, all of these things, when you give yourself the grace and the space to first let it out the ugly way, right? When we write
Yeah.
it down, it means that sometimes I can go in my notes app and I can just let it fly, right? I can just say what I feel. I can say it probably the ugliest way I would ever want to say it.
Right.
And then I get to have the time and the space to let me erase that little portion of what I said and let me go back and find a more gracious way of saying this. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings me to my next question. How much importance would you place on preparing things to alleviate your food related anxiety? So, for example, certainly we talked about planning what your responses are going to be to people.
Mm-hmm.
But what about things like meal planning and meal prep? Do you feel like that is helpful for somebody that is dealing with food related anxiety, or would that be more of a hindrance?
So I would say if you are to the degree of disordered eating where you have a diagnosis at this point and it's really affecting every aspect of your life, then I would say make sure you talk to your therapist, nutritionist, dietitian, whoever you're working with on your team about the appropriateness of tracking meal prep, those sorts of things. Because there
Right.
may be people who this has become an obsessive behavior and it's not helpful. I would
Yeah.
say for more often though, meal prep and planning ahead of time is going to help take so much anxiety out of the situation. If I have 2 or 3 snacks on hand that I know are going to feel good to my body, they're going to help fuel me and feel good, and I have those ready and on hand, it takes so much decision fatigue out of it and it helps me to make a better decision in the moment. The same with the meals. If I know I have 2 or 3 lunches that not only taste good to me, but feel good when I eat them, that is going to reduce anxiety and give me the opportunity to feel differently, build confidence when it comes to my decisions around food. And overall, I think it's a really good thing. I'm sure you
Yeah.
probably have seen, you probably see a lot more of that than I do, but I think it's a
Yes.
great thing.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, it's kind of like, what is the reason behind your meal planning and meal prep? Is it for you to control every aspect of
Mhm.
what you're putting into your mouth? And in that case, it's probably not helpful for you. But if it is to, help you out so that you're not feeling overwhelmed and feeling like you have to, prepare all these meals every single day, and now you have a million dishes to make and, whatever, absolutely I think can be a helpful tool for sure. Okay, so what are some long-term strategies for maintaining a healthy relationship with food after overcoming that initial anxiety? What can females do?
So I would say keep number one, keep reflecting on your journey. Don't assume that, oh, I think I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really need to think about this anymore. Ask yourself what used to feel hard that feels easier now and what has made it feel easier. Try to tune in to how you're doing. Keep tracking in with yourself and asking, what does peace with food look like for me right now? I would say surround yourself with supportive people and kind of don't, you don't have to keep obsessing over food related, books, podcasts, things like that. But continue to check in. It's like I said earlier, it's one of the only things that you're going to do every single day, no matter what. Staying consistent with your eating patterns, look out for that. For a lot of people, they might be feeling really good about it, but maybe have a stressful few weeks at work and they notice all of a sudden, oh, I'm starting to skip meals again, or I'm starting to maybe binge late at night, sometimes after work. Kind of Keep an eye on those behaviors as they change. If you're able to maintain a consistent eating pattern and not skip meals, that's going to be very important for long-term management of anxiety around food and not getting yourself back into a
Yes.
spiral sort of situation. Also, something that this is honestly newer for me because I wasn't really taught a lot about it, but is important is take this time now that you're feeling less anxious to learn about your hormones, just seasons of life, your
Hmm.
cycle, how stress affects you. Take the time to learn about that because knowing, oh, next week is going to be a tough food week for me, knowing that
Yes.
ahead of time is life changing.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. I agree. So, are there any books or podcasts or resources or devotions or anything like that that you would recommend for listeners that they could use right now?
Yeah, so I have one book that right now I'm finding very helpful for myself and for a lot of clients. And it is not specific to eating anxiety, but it is very helpful in dealing with the issues of control and coping mechanisms. And that is a very easy read, Untangle Your Emotions by Jenny Allen. It's not touching specifically on food anxiety, but for most people, this issue of control, anxiety, trying to just cope, getting through the day, doing whatever it takes, running through that drive through, kind of taking the time to unravel those emotions is going to be one of the most important first steps. And I find that book to be very an easy read, but challenging
Hmm.
and very easy for anyone to understand. So I would highly recommend that book and podcasts like your own, just where you hear other people talking about it, normalizing it.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay, awesome. Now, if somebody feels like, okay, I've done all this, I need additional help, what would be their next steps?
So, my recommendation, honestly, would be there are many websites out there. Some are better than others. I would say you can go to psychologytoday.com and you can put in filters for exactly what you are looking for and struggling with. If eating anxiety, it's become an everyday struggle. If you are constantly thinking about if you're having just constant food noise or you are skipping meals regularly, it's affecting your life. It's important to talk to someone beyond just your family. It would be a good time to get help. You don't have to hit rock bottom and feel like you have an eating disorder to talk to
Right.
someone about this. That's
Yes,
very
absolutely.
important. So, talk to your physician. Don't neglect the physical aspects of this. Therapy is important, but addressing the actual physical side of this with nutritionists, dietitians, doctors is very important to address both sides. Cognitive behavior therapy, I think, is very effective for this. So, you can
Hmm.
specifically look for a cognitive behavior therapist and someone in your area, and Psychology Today is a really helpful way to find that.
Awesome. So let's say someone says, I love what Jessica had to say today. I want to work with Jessica. How would they reach you?
So you can reach me at jessica@salefamilytherapy.com. You can tell me what's going on and I'll be able to talk it through with you and let you know if we would be a good fit or not. And you can also find me on Psychology Today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you. It's great.